Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check. Check, 1 2 1 2 1 2. Check, 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 check. Check. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2. Check, check 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2 1 2. Test, test. Test 1 2.
Okay. So just let me know when. Ready? Oh, okay.
Well, you're gonna be you're gonna be far away, Flo.
Yeah, because close up of Kevin when he's giving instruction. They'll give a wide shot of us, all of us doing it. I don't know. Okay, we are live. Oh, we're live. Okay. Well, good evening, Diabetes Done Plus class, and I hope
We're early.
you guys
6:26.
are well and safe, and
Are people tuned in?
Can you talk up a little more, please? Sure. I hope that you guys are also sheltering in place and not going out and staying home like we're supposed to. So tonight we're going to start with the exercise, and why don't we start with just do a quick warm-up.
Did we start too early?
I gave you the warm-up when we had our very first class. I gave you a sheet of warm-up to show you guys what to do before you actually start your workout. So we're going to do that, and but what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do it really quickly, and when you guys actually do it every day, when you do your exercise every day, you should probably spend about maybe 10 minutes doing it. But tonight I just run through it real quickly, and then we'll just get on to the actual exercise for this evening. So why don't we start start with our heads, and we're going to bring our chin to our chest, and then back up and look at the ceiling. And we're just going to do this a few times. Up and down, up and down. And now we're going to turn to our left and then turn to the right. And we're just going to alternate left and right, left, right, left, right, and one more to the left and one more to the right. Okay, what we're going to do now is shrug our shoulders and roll to the back. Shrug and roll to the back. Shoulder rolls to the back. A few more of these. All right, and now we're going to shrug and roll to the front. Shoulder rolls to the front. One more. Okay. And now we're going to be bending to the side. So let's start with our right arm up in the air. And you can leave the left hand down by the side of your thigh. And we're just going to bend to the left and then back up. Bend and back up. Bend and up. And bend and up. Now, right arm down, left arm up, and we're going to bend to the right. And bend, back to upright. Bend, a couple more. All right, okay. Now we're going to put our hands on our hips, and we're going to do some hip circles. And all we're doing is just kind of rotating our hips in place. And your feet can be just, regular stance width apart. Keep rotating. And reverse. A few more. All right, and then all we're going to do now is we're just going to walk in place. And you can just let your arms kind of swing naturally. And when you're doing this on your own at home during the week, just keep doing this, and slowly, little by little, just raise your knee a little higher. And now you can bend your elbows and move your hands back and forth. And if you can, raise your knees a little bit higher. A few more. And stop. Okay. And now if you need to hold on to something, what we're going to do is we're just going to go on our tiptoes and just kind of bounce a bit. So if you need, just make sure if your balance is not that good, just you can do this next to a wall, or you can do this on a table or a chair, and just kind of bounce up and down, loosen up the ankles. All right, feet down, shake out your legs, shake out your arms, and then we're going to start our exercise. Okay, so by now you guys should have received in your email, there are 2 sheets. One is the exercises. There are 3 exercises we're going to do tonight. And the second sheet really just focuses on squats. The first exercise we're going to do is a squat. And the reason why I included a second sheet, because it's really important that you do this correctly. It's a really important exercise because it works the largest muscles in your body, which is your quads and your leg muscles. So you can read this. I'll explain a little bit, but this is something just for you to read. It's kind of a guide of how to do the squats. So what we're going to need is a chair. And what you want to do is you want to stand in front of your chair and just pretend like you're going to sit down, because a squat basically is kind of like you're just going to be sitting down in a chair. And when you get good at this, you don't really need the chair there, but just as a guide, we're going to use a chair first. So you want to stand with your feet just regular, hip width apart. And all we're going to do is you're going to squat, you're going to bend down, and just keep an eye on the chair. And the minute your butt touches the chair, you're going to stand back up. So what we're not going to do is we're not going to just sit down and put your whole weight in the chair. So you want to engage the muscles in your leg and keep those under some tension. So as you sit down, arms out, and the minute your butt touches the chair, we stand back up again. And down, and up, and keep your weight on your heels. Back down, barely touch the chair with your butt, and back up again. We'll do a few more of these. 3, 2, and 1. All right. And so you can read that sheet. It gives you a little bit more information on how to do the squat, but you just want to make sure when you're doing the squat, you just want to go, your body basically is staying vertical and you're going down. You don't really want to bend over like this, because then it's not the correct form. So you just want to make sure you keep the weight on your heels, and you're just going to go down, sitting, and then back up. And when you get good at this, you don't really need the chair. You can just do this, just without the chair. Okay, so the second exercise we're doing is going to be high knees. It's something similar to the warm-up that we do, except what I want you to do is bend your arms out at your elbows, keep your palms out, your hands out, your palms facing down. And all we're going to do is we're going to march, and you're going to bring your knee up to your palm. So you're going to keep your hand in place. Your hand is not moving. Up, alternating knees, all the way up to your palms. So basically what you can do is just lock your elbows by your side. Your arms are bent 90 degrees. Hands are flat out, palm facing down, and knees up to your palms. And we're going to do a few of these. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. And the last exercise we're going to do is, you might want to use a chair for this. You don't need to, but what you want to do is hold on to something. Again, table or chair. Feet hip width apart. And just when you do this, you just want to lightly hold onto the chair, because you want all the tension to be in your legs. So just lightly hold on. Holding on is just only to keep you from falling if you're not very balanced. So you're going to stand on your tiptoes, and we're going to count 5 as you slowly lower your heels down to the floor. All right? So let's start up, and we're going to count 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And up again. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Up, and remember, a very light touch on the chair. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and last one, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And that's the 3 different exercises that you guys you can do this week. And just to let you know, most exercises when you do this, when you're doing this on your own at home, what you want to do is you want to do between 8 to 12 repetitions. And usually you want to do at least 2 to 3 sets of those. And if you need to rest in between each set, you can do that. So basically you can go from one exercise to the next without resting. If you need to rest in between, that's fine. But what you want to do is do the 3 exercises, 8 to 12 repetitions of each, and then you can rest about a minute, and then repeat it again 1 more time or 2 more times for a total of 2 or 3 sets. All right, so these are exercises that you guys can work on this week, and I hope, read this, like I said, read this thing about the squats. You want to make sure you get it right, and whenever you do exercises, you always want to make sure that you do the form correctly, because it's better that you do less and do it correctly. And if you can't do 8 to 12, do as many as you can and work your way up to it. All right, so that's it. And I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
All right. How are you doing, class members and alumni? We invited the alumni from Diabetes Undone to join us if they wanted to. And we're just doing this to kind of keep in some contact with you, give you a little bit of extra information, some of which we might have covered in class, but we'll kind of divide it up into smaller chunks. So tonight we're going to talk about label reading, how to choose real healthy food in less than 10 seconds. Because we want you to get really good at this. This is very important. I know it's getting hard to find things at the supermarkets now, but if you can, you're going to want to practice your label reading. And so we feel that this is one of the most crucial things that you can learn, and you really need to become skillful at this so that as you keep doing it, you'll get more and more skillful, and you'll be able to do it even more and more rapidly. In regards to last week, someone sent in a question. So we do want to, if we have time, we want to allow you to send in questions, and I'm not sure how they're supposed to do that. Raylene, can you tell them how we are supposed to be able to do questions if they want to?
They have a phone number that they can text to. It's in the email, and also our...
Okay, so you can text a question to the number that was put in your email for tonight or for today to invite you, and that'd probably be the best way. And you can email if you want to the email address. So someone asked a question that we didn't get to answer, and that was in regards to the HDL cholesterol. And I didn't pay too much attention to that because it really isn't that helpful. And the HDL cholesterol is the high-density lipoprotein cholesterol. It's thought to be the good protective cholesterol. And it really has only applied, as well as the ratios of HDL cholesterol to total cholesterol, it really only applies to those who are already high. And so if you had more HDL cholesterol, it's thought to be somewhat beneficial or protective. There has been obviously a little bit of debate about how good HDL cholesterol is. There are different kinds of HDL cholesterol, and the test does not differentiate between the kinds of HDL cholesterol. So in general, we just don't take much stock in the HDL cholesterol. We really pay attention to the LDL cholesterol because that level is the bad cholesterol, and that's the one you want to focus on. The HDL cholesterol can be, obviously we want it to be as high as possible. However, sometimes being low HDL cholesterol is a good thing. Just think of the HDL as being garbage trucks, taking the cholesterol out of the arteries and taking it back to the liver or into the bloodstream. Well, the more garbage you have, the more garbage trucks you need. So obviously having a lot of garbage trucks isn't necessarily beneficial. It just shows that you have a lot of garbage. Some of the healthiest populations have total cholesterols of 120, and their LDL cholesterols are below 90. They're in the 80s or 70s, and yet their HDL cholesterol is only 20. And so if you did a ratio, you'd say, well, their total cholesterol to HDL ratio is like 6, and that's horrible. but their LDL is so low that HDL ratios and just the total HDL cholesterol means nothing. So that's why we don't put too much stock in the HDL cholesterol. So I hope that answers your questions. We don't get too excited about it, especially if your total cholesterol or LDL cholesterol is already low. We don't care about where your HDL cholesterol is. All right, let's get into label reading tonight, and I hope you can see on your screen this title, label reading. So what we want to do is cover a few rules. And rule number 1 is never, ever believe anything on the front of any package. There's a few exceptions to that, and we may cover that a little bit later, but in general, you don't want to believe anything on the front of the package. The front of the package is designed for one purpose only, and that is to get your attention and for you to go over and buy it. Pick it up off the shelf, stick it in your cart, and buy it. That is what it's designed to do. So whatever is on the front is designed specifically to attract you, to make you think it's something that you should buy because it's healthier than all the other things that are around it on the shelf. It's got to attract your attention. It's got to be through color, through big print, through some sexy image or something that looks really healthy, and then with some words on there that will attract your attention, that will make you think it's healthy. So in general, never ever believe anything on the front of any package. Rule number 2, always. So one is never, one is always. Read the nutrition facts label and the ingredients list. Do not just read the nutrition facts label. If you do, you will be deceived. You will be fooled. So you need to look at the ingredients list, and we'll go into why that is later. All right. So as we are looking at these things, we're going to be checking the fats. First thing we want to do is check the fats. And what you will see on a nutrition facts label is that they will show you the calories per serving. And next to it, they will tell you the calories from fat or the grams from fat. So those that are a little trickier will just give you the grams from fat because they don't think you have enough math or enough knowledge to figure out how many calories that is, which is very deceiving. They used to just automatically give you the calories from fat, so you could compare it to the calories per serving, and then you could see like, well, that's kind of high. I mean, when the calories from fat are half or larger, 50% or greater of the total, you say, that's pretty high in fat. So instead, it's a lower number to tell you the grams from fat. So when you see the grams from fat, that number is not very big until you multiply it by 9. There are 9 calories per gram of fat. So almost think of it as like 10 times. Just add a 0. If they give you the grams of fat, you can't multiply by 9, then multiply by 10. That'll be close enough. And therefore, you'll get the calories from fat, and you can compare it to the calories per serving. And in general, we don't want fat exceeding 20% of the calories. All right? 20% of the calories. So you want to compare the calories per serving to the calories from fat, and you'd like the fat calories to be 20% or less. Now, you have to check the ingredients list to avoid certain fats, because not only do you want to see the amount of calories from fat, you want to see what kind of fat there is. And there are some fats you want to tend to avoid. First is saturated animal fat. And so most animal fat is primarily saturated. However, there are also some saturated plant fats. Those are what we call the tropical oils, coconut oil and palm oil. And then there's the really bad ones, the partially hydrogenated plant oil. So they'll take a vegetable oil like safflower oil, soybean oil, something like that, and partially hydrogenate it. This is another term for trans fats. And trans fats are especially harmful to the body. And there is no safe lower number for trans fats. Any trans fat is bad. Now, trans fats come naturally in some animal products, but it also comes from the manufacture of partially hydrogenated plant oil, which you might find in margarines, which you might find in fried foods, because they may use partially hydrogenated oils to make fried things, whether it's French fries, whether it's potato chips, whether it's other kinds of chips, things like that. Then, which we don't see very much anymore, is the interesterified fats, which are, again, modified vegetable oils, and they're modified to make them of a certain texture or consistency. And again, you want to avoid these, but it's rare to find any interesterified fats now. But if you see one, you see that on a label, you want to avoid that. Now, the important thing here at the bottom of the slide is that any amount less than 0.5 grams can be listed as 0. So this is the tricky part. So whenever it gives you a number, whenever they give you a number on the label, just because it says 0 doesn't mean it's not there. It just means it's less than 0.5 grams. So if it's 0.49 grams, they can call it 0 grams. So there's where you can have something that is even 100% fat, and it can be labeled as 0 grams of fat. Very deceptive. And not only that, it's less than 0.5 grams per serving. So you must look at the serving size. At the very top of the nutrition facts label will be where it designates what is considered a serving size. It could be an ounce. It could be 2 ounces. It could be a cup. It could be a slice. It could be 2 tortillas. It could be 20 chips. It could be 5 cookies. Whatever, it will tell you what a serving size is. And you really need to have that firmly in mind about a serving size, because some people obviously eat more than 1 serving. Some people eat the whole container, the whole bag, the whole box, the whole package. And so you have to then, if it has 10 servings per container and you eat the whole thing, you have to multiply all the numbers on there by 10. It will tell you how much you're getting. So it's very important to notice the serving size. So you can take something like a non-stick spray, which is 100% oil, in other words, 100% fat, and it could be called 0 grams of fat. And they'll put that on the front because that tells you that this is a non-fat, or you think it's a non-fat, non-stick spray. However, you don't see that the serving size is maybe 1/3 of a second of spray. So 1/3 of a second of spray, they can get less than 0.5 grams. Therefore, they can say it's 0 grams of fat. And yet, if you look at the ingredients, that's why you have to look at the ingredients. The ingredients say oil, and that's the only ingredient. So you know that all of the calories are going to have to come from the oil, but yet they say it's no grams of fat. And that's because the serving size is so small, just a little, that they can call it 0 grams of fat because that little bit was less than 0.5 grams. So you have to look at ingredients. The ingredients will tell you if it's in there, and then you know that they're lying to you when they tell you it's 0 grams of whatever. All right. The next thing you check. So we're checking fat. Next thing we check is sodium. The sodium rule is the ratio of sodium to calories per serving should be 1-to-1 or less. So in other words, the sodium is going to be given in milligrams, and the calories is going to be given in calories, but we're just looking at the numbers. Don't worry about whether it's milligrams to milligrams or calories to calories. Don't worry about it. This is just a simple way of looking at just the numbers, the straight numbers, milligrams of sodium to calories, and you want the sodium to be equal or less, preferably less, than the calories per serving. Per serving. So as you look up here, recommended general recommendations for sodium range from 1,200 milligrams of sodium up to 2,300 milligrams per day. Now what we know is a teaspoon of salt has 2,000 milligrams of sodium. So we're talking about a little over a half teaspoon of salt, which would give you 1,200 milligrams of sodium. Now, the recommendations for sodium vary with age. The younger, the more liberal. The older, the more strict and more limiting on the sodium, especially if your blood pressure is starting to creep up. So it's important to do all the other things, keeping your normal weight, exercising, managing stress, to make sure your blood pressure is okay, and you can be liberalized on the sodium. But if your blood pressure is going up, and especially if you are on antihypertensive medication, you need to get the sodium down. So at less than 50 years of age, you can have 1,500 milligrams of sodium, which would still be less than a teaspoon of salt, sodium chloride. 50 to 70 years of age, you can be at 1,300 milligrams, and greater than 70 years, 1,200 milligrams. All right, that's sodium. So you want to check the fats, you want to check the sodium. Then the next thing you want to do is look for sugars. Now with sugars, you want to look at the ingredient list. You don't care about how many calories are from carbohydrate and all this stuff. You just want to look at the sugars in the ingredient list. And you're looking for added sugars or sweeteners. And the rule is here, you want to avoid products with added sugars listed within the first 3 ingredients. The first 3 ingredients. Now, how can you tell what is a sugar? Because there are so many different kinds of sugars, over 100 different kinds of sugars, that it's very confusing. And the food companies know that people are kind of looking for the sugars. So the way that they do things is they created a whole bunch of different kinds of sweeteners, because the ingredients list has to give you by weight the largest ingredient first by weight, then the second by weight, the third, fourth, and all the way down, depending on how many ingredients they have. So what they usually do is, instead of giving you all of your sweetness from one sugar, because that would put it up in the top first or second ingredient, they give you 3 or 4 sugars instead, and they are smaller amounts, because together they make up a large amount, but individually they make up small amounts, and they can put them lower down in the ingredients list, because by weight they are lower. So this is why they have created all these different sweeteners for you. It could be sugar, brown sugar, honey, molasses, maple syrup, corn syrup, barley malt, fructose, agave syrup, dextrose, any kind of sweetener, just to get the weight and the down, so the ingredients, it'll be lower on the ingredients list. So we still, though, want to avoid sugars, added sugars, in the first 3 ingredients. So if you see that, you probably don't want to take that as a healthy food. All right, as we look at the grain products, we want to look at the fact that we want to look for 100% whole grain. It could be sprouted whole grain, it could be rolled whole grain, stone ground, or cracked would be fine. But you want it to say 100% whole. You don't want it to say just contains whole, or if you look at ingredients, you'll sometimes say, you'll see enriched wheat flour, and then after that will be whole wheat flour. Obviously, that doesn't have 100% whole wheat flour, because it's got some mixed in with enriched wheat flour, and then it's got some whole wheat flour. It's a mixture, and you have no idea. In fact, the fact that the whole wheat is second means that the enriched or processed flour is in larger proportion. And you have no idea how much, but all you know is it might be second in weight for ingredients. So you want to look for 100% whole grain if you're going for grain products, breads, baked goods, things like that. All right, so in summary, as you're looking at labels, you're going to check first the fat, check the calories of fat against the total calories per serving. It needs to be 20% or less. And this is where you have to do a little math. So 20% is taking 10% and doubling it. or it's dividing by 5, or whatever you need to do to kind of figure it out. You can multiply by 2 and divide by 10. I mean, whatever, which is moving a decimal place one number over. So whatever way that you can rapidly determine 20%, you know, to me, I usually take 10% and then double it. That's 20%. Then we want to check the sodium. Now, you also have to check, obviously, the ingredients. Okay, then the sodium, you check the sodium in milligrams against the total calories, and there you want the sodium to be equal or less than the calories. And then read the ingredients list. You want to look for no bad fats. That's the saturated, the trans, the partially hydrogenated. And you also want more than 3 ingredients before any added sugar. And then make sure if you have grains in there, that's 100% whole grain. So those 3 things in the ingredients list: no bad fats, the sugars at least more than 3 ingredients away from the top and from the first ingredient, and make sure that the grains are 100% whole grain. All right. Now, we're going to do some exercises to help you practice how to do this. So here's an ingredients list, and you see here that it's whole wheat flour. It's got oatmeal, wheat bran, cane molasses, and so that's a sweetener, but it's in the, like, what, that's like 4th. It has carrots, some canola oil, but it's preserved with mixed tocopherols, which are vitamin E. Has sweet potatoes, apples, ground flaxseed, parsley, garlic, salt, mixed tocopherols, and there's a little bit more vitamin E materials added to preserve freshness. So, does this seem like it's healthy? Does it look really good to eat? Would it be okay? Especially if you can't get out to the grocery store now because of the shortage of food. Well, would you eat this? Well, this is a time when you do need to read the front of the label, because this happens to be the ingredients list for Old Mother Hubbard Jess Classic Vegan Oven Baked Dog Biscuits. So this is not even a human food, but it looks pretty healthy. So this is the only time that you really need to read the front of the package so you know exactly if it's for humans or not. But other than that, don't believe anything on the front of the package. All right. We had Trader Joe's field trip, and we went and looked at different things at Trader Joe's, because in general, most people think that you get healthy things at Trader Joe's. Well, let's start applying the principles that we've learned about label reading to some of these foods at Trader Joe's. All right, here we have steamed lentils, ready to eat warm or cold. Excellent source of fiber and iron. So that looks good, right? So let's see what we're going to look for. Here's a nutrition facts label. What is it that we want to check? The serving size is 1/2 cup. That's a pretty large amount. All right. Calories per serving is what? Right, 120. The calories from fat is how much? 0. So they give you the calories from fat. So what would be 20% of the calories? Do your math. Okay, it would be 24 calories. You can have 24 calories from fat. Now, does this have less than 24 calories from fat? Sure, it's got 0. All right, so it passes there. Next, we check the calories against the sodium. Sodium is 240. The calories are 120. Is the sodium equal to or less than the calories? No, you're right. It's double the calories. So on that basis, we should say, no, this isn't going to be a good product. Well, if you want to go on further, you'll look at the ingredients, right? The ingredients are lentils, salt, natural flavor. Now, do you see any bad fats? No. Do you see any added sugars? No. All right? So, those are good. And the last rule was, is it whole grain? Well, this is not a grain product. All right. So you see that the salt the sodium was high, too high in this food, and it's because salt is the second ingredient. And then you have third, natural flavor. The problem with natural flavor is it's a junk box. It's a grab bag. You have no idea. It could be MSG, monosodium glutamate. Monosodium glutamate can be labeled as natural flavor. I don't know what they put in here. I don't know if they use natural flavor in place of MSG to hide the fact that it's MSG or not, but it just is natural flavor. So you have no idea, but it could be MSG. All right, so based on this, would we say this is a healthy food or not a healthy food? Right, not a healthy food. Let's go to the next one. Trader Joe's shelled soybeans, edamame, ready to eat. All right, it says high in fiber and good source of protein. Well, it should be. It's a bean. It's a legume. All legumes are high in fiber, naturally. That's why the lentils had a high amount of fiber. All right, so this looks like it would be good. What does it say? A serving size, half a cup. All right, calories, 120 calories. Calories from fat. All right, so are the calories from fat less than 20% or 20% or less? So the number of calories that would make 20% is how many calories? Right, 24. 24 calories are allowed from fat. Is this one less than or equal to 24, or is it greater? It's greater, so it's almost double. It's over a third, 33% fat. This tells you something, because as you look at the ingredients, you will see that the ingredients are only soybeans and salt. Nothing's added. There's no oil added. This tells you that soybeans are a rich food. It's a plant, 100% plant, but it's a rich food as far as fat. It's about a little over a third fat, 35%, something like that, in fat. And so you'd have to say, well, you just don't want to eat too much of it or a lot of it. Okay? So it is a plant fat. As you look at that, we'll look at it some more, but let's look at, we looked at the fat. It is exceeding the 20% in calories from fat that we would like. Let's look at the sodium. Calories is 120, right? How much sodium do we have? 450. So, is the sodium equal to or less than the calories? Hardly. It's almost 4 times the amount, 450 milligrams to 120. So this does not pass our sodium test. And that's a half a cup. If you ate a cup, you'd be at 900 milligrams of sodium. You're already close to the maximum allowable for the day. All right, so it does not pass on the salt, it's not passing on the fat. Now look at the ingredients list. The ingredients are soybeans and salt. So you don't have any added sugars, you don't have any added fats, there's no bad fats, and naturally soybeans have 1 gram of saturated fat. They will have no trans fat, and the rest is going to be mono or polyunsaturated fat. So 4 grams out of the 5 grams are going to be monounsaturated or polyunsaturated. Only 1 gram is going to be saturated. And that's natural plant fat. Now, if you're dealing with something like soybeans, and all it has is this, and you're not cooking it with oil, and you're not adding any fats to it that are processed, then you could give a little bit on the fats. You don't have to be so strict on these kind of fats. You don't want to eat, obviously, a lot of this stuff because it's rich, just like we don't want you to eat a lot of nuts and seeds because they are also high in fat. But plant fats have a way of actually giving you some good things, especially if they're unprocessed. They do give you certain minerals that we would like you to get. And, you know, as we looked at the blue zones, there was one blue zone that has 45 to 50% of their calories from fat, and they are a blue zone. So it's very hard for me to be hard and fast and say every single food you have has got to be 20% or lower from fat. Otherwise, you would not eat nuts, seeds, or soybeans. Okay? So you need to be 20% or lower, ideally from all your foods throughout the day. And if you're eating foods that are practically have zero fat, you know, like fruit and some of the vegetables, well, you're gonna bring down your average even though you're up at 33%, 35% with soybeans. That's okay. Your average is going to be fine for the day. You just can't eat a lot of that because then it's going to be hard to dilute those the calorie fat density by the other foods. Okay, let's go to the next one. Roasted Brussels sprouts. All right, does that sound good? Looks good on the package here. All right, serving size, again, is a half a cup. Calories are 60, and they give you the calories from fat. So, calories are 60, what would be 20%? Right, 12. So the calories from fat, are they equal or less than 20%? No, they're just a little bit higher. Instead of 12, you have 15. So it's just a tiny bit more. So you wonder, like, well, okay, how come Brussels sprouts have so much fat? Well, let's look at the sodium. The sodium is 105. Is it less than the calories? No. It's almost double, at least 1.5 times. All right, so it's not passing on the fats, it's not passing on the sodium. What about the ingredients? All right, are there any added bad fats? They have olive oil. Is it a bad fat? No, it's not a saturated fat. It doesn't come from animals. It's not partially hydrogenated. So olive oil is a monounsaturated fat. It's okay. So there's no bad fats, but it's in here. Are there any sugars? No sugars. And this is not a grain product, so we don't have to worry about that. So what we see here is that the reason why the fat calories are a little bit high is because of the olive oil, not because of the Brussels sprouts. And the salt is high because of the added salt. They did add pepper, but that's not going to be here or there. So, you know, this is again one of those things where you have to decide, is it too much fat for your taste? I mean, what else have you had for the day? What else are you having with that meal? If you're not having much rich foods that have fats in them, you can have this. It's not that much over. The salt is high. You're getting 310 milligrams in a half a cup. Maybe just eat a quarter cup. Whatever it is, you have to decide how much you want to let this dish contribute to your sodium for the day. All right, let's go to another one. Sweet potato ribbons. Thinly sliced sweet potatoes, versatile enough for salads, stir fries, soups, casseroles, or even a pasta swap. Excellent source of vitamin A. Yes, things that tend to be orange tend to be rich in vitamin A. Carrots being one of them, sweet potatoes being another. All of the kind of yellowish or orange tend to have, colored tend to have a lot of vitamin A. All right, what's the serving size? 1.5 cups. You got to get 1.5, and not just a half a cup, 1.5 cups per serving. And that only gives you 90 calories. How many calories from fat? How many calories from fat would be 20%? Be 18. So are we less than 18 or equal to 18 on the fat calories? Yes, we're at 0. All right, so the sodium. Is the sodium equal to or less than the amount of calories? Yes, sodium is 60, calories are 90. It's way less. All right, so now we go to the ingredients list. It is sweet potatoes. There's no salt, there's no olive oil, there's nothing. It's just plain sweet potatoes. And so what you see is when you have something that's unprocessed, nothing is added, nothing has been taken out, it's going to be healthy. It's going to meet all the criteria that we want for a healthy food. So this is definitely a keeper. Now you notice that it's got a lot of carbohydrate, 22 grams, and of that, 3 grams of fiber, and so you have about a ratio of 7:1, which is not bad, especially for something that's not a bean. And then sugars are 5 grams. But again, those are plant sugars. They're not added sugars. These are the sugars that are in the sweet potato that makes it sweet. All right, let's go to another one. Butternut squash zigzags. Excellent source of vitamin A again, because butternut squash, you notice the color. It's nice and orange. And so those things are going to be generally high in vitamin A. You can just tell that just by looking at the color. As long as it's not a colored product, you know, like an orange Starburst or M&M or something like that, it's going to have vitamin A if it's from a plant. All right, 1 cup is a serving for butternut squash zigzags, and the calories per serving is how much? Right, 40. And how many calories would be allowable from fat? 20% of 40 would be 8, right? So how many calories are from fat? 0. So does this pass for equal to or less than 20%? Yes, definitely. Now look at the sodium. Sodium is 0. Is it, compared to 40 calories, is it equal to or lower than the calories? Way lower, because 0. Now look at the ingredients. The ingredients are butternut squash. Any added sugars? No. Any bad fats? No. This is not a grain product, so you don't have to worry about whether it's 100% whole grain. So there you have it. Another simple food that's 100% unprocessed butternut squash. It passes. Okay, now let's get into something more interesting. Trader Joe's organic chunky apple cinnamon bread. So this is a bread, so it's going to be a grain product. We get to look at one of those. And it's got an apple. It says dried apples in it. So this sounds like, oh, it's organic. That sounds good. Chunky apple. Oh, that chunky means it must be healthier than just apple puree or apple juice. So let's take a look. All right. So a serving size is 2 ounce, which is 1 inch slice. A 1 inch slice of this cinnamon apple chunky bread. All right. 1 inch slice has 180 calories in the serving. Now, this is where they get a little tricky. They give you the fat in grams. They don't give you the calories from fat. They give you the fat grams. And it is how much? 7. So, how many calories are there from fat? Now you have to use your math. How many calories per gram of fat? Right, 9. 7 times 9 is 63. 63 calories from fat out of 180 calories in the serving. Is this at 20% or less? What is going to be 20% of 180 calories? Okay, 36. Are we equal to or less than 36 calories from fat? We are way over, right? 7 times 9 is 63. So we are over. We are over 33, almost 35% fat. So it's got too much fat. All right, let's look at the sodium. The sodium is 170 milligrams compared to 180 calories. Is it passing the sodium guidelines? Is it equal to or less than the amount of calories? Yes, it's lower. It's 170 compared to 180, so it passes on the sodium. All right. So, what is the ingredients? Do we have the ingredients on here? Well, it did not, the next one? Okay. Oh, okay, let's look at the ingredients. So it has organic wheat flour, water, organic sugar, organic canola oil, organic palm oil, organic dried diced apples, organic cinnamon, organic liquid pasteurized eggs, organic invert sugar, organic dry whole milk powder, sea salt, and yeast. So it does contain milk, egg, and wheat. Well, if you're vegan, that already eliminate this product. But let's say you're not vegan. It has, does it have any bad fats? All right, so you'll notice there's a bunch of oils here. There's canola oil and palm oil. And palm oil was one of those tropical oils. It's a saturated fat. All right, so what we see here then is that this is not good as far as a kind of fat. Then as you look at the sugars, you'll see that we have organic sugar is the third ingredient. So that doesn't pass our sugar test. And then it has organic wheat flour. It doesn't say whole wheat flour. So it doesn't pass our 100% whole grain. So this would not be one that you would want to take, no matter how good it tastes. The other interesting thing is you go back and look at the total carbohydrate if you want to see how refined this flour is. You've got 1 gram of fiber in 26 grams of carbohydrate. And so you've got 11 grams of added sugars. You've got 12 grams of just the natural grain carbohydrate. But when you have a ratio of 26 to 1, you know that there's very little fiber. It's been very, very processed. Wheat should be down to around 12, at the most 13 to 1, so you know that this is pretty processed. Okay, so this is you want to keep doing this over and over and over to get practiced in reading labels. And the more you do it, the faster you'll get at it, and we hope this will help you a lot. So I think we're going to have some questions.
I don't know if they can hear, but this is one of the students. Her name's Cindy, and so she's just sharing, and this is Martha's table. So Martha's table leader.
Okay.
And so it's just some encouragement. I think she's staying on it, so you can just read that.
Okay, so this is something that Cindy is sharing, is that right? I am doing well with the program, trying to stay on it 100%. From the conference and meetings, I have a much better idea of what my body needs and why. It's for my health, life, and quality of life. In my mind, I don't have another option. No one or group has ever been so helpful. I love this program! Exclamation, exclamation. Doctors have always just told me to just take more pills. All right. Now here's a question from Lisa. Is that the question? How do you deal with stress during these stressful times while trying to eat healthy? People tend to go towards comfort foods when they are stressed. And that is true, especially if you're in the habit of going to comfort foods. You just have to find healthier comfort foods. You know, there's always that, even you know, when we're trying to get smokers to change from their oral habit, we try to get them to put something else in their mouth that's healthier, whether it's a carrot stick or something else. So there are other ways to deal with stress. Exercise would be helpful. Doing what Kevin has been telling you to do with exercise, drinking a lot of water, making sure you're getting enough sleep. And really there's the mental, emotional, spiritual component of dealing with stress. You know, if you don't have a spiritual tie-in or something that you can rely on that's a higher power than you, people suffer. No wonder people have stress. If they do not have that connection, a spiritual connection with a higher power, a spiritual power that's greater than themselves, something that they can rely on and trust in, they are going to have more stress. I mean, that's just the way it is. Whereas on the contrast, if you have a God or a spirit or something that you can rely on and trust and know for certainty that you can put your trust and faith and hope in, you don't stress. You just don't stress as much. And so this is just part of the lifestyle that we recommend. Even though we're focusing mainly on nutrition, we don't want to forget the other components. All right, well, I hope this has been helpful for you, and we will probably be back next week. We will let you know as we go. Take the time to practice these things. Go through your cupboards and your pantry and things like that and start looking at the things that you have and maybe do a pantry makeover after doing that. And look at your refrigerator and the frozen freezer and look at the things that you have and evaluate those foods to see whether you should keep them or not. And especially if you're going to go to those things when it does get stressful, because you're going to go to those things that you have in your kitchen, pantry, or refrigerator or freezer. And so you want to make sure that what you have to go for is going to be healthy. So stay with your physical distancing, not the social distancing. We want to stay in contact with you. We don't want to do the social distancing. We want to stay in contact with you by email, by these live streams, by phone calls, by text or whatever. that we can do to help you. So we hope that you are following those daily goal sheets. I mean, still keep doing those. That'll be good. If you need to develop new goals, but at least do that for now. It'll give you something to keep busy with during this time when we have to stay in so much. All right, so long, and be in good health. Bye.